response, including PSPS.
Awesome. Great.
I'll pass it to Jennifer.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ocampo, and I work in customer service, focusing on access and functional needs. And thank you so much for having us and the opportunity to come here and have this conversation. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being in the frying pan because, I don't think anybody really likes when you do the power shutoffs, but I think I think we understand. But so whenever you guys are ready, you explain how that comes about and how do you utilize those.
Awesome. Jennifer, did you say you were going to share the slides? Did you want to go ahead and start that up? Oh, look at that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start us off here. So before we dive into all the information about PSPS, I'm going to start us off with a safety moment. We're going to talk a little bit just on safety near downed lines. Obviously, lines on the ground is a huge safety concern. Sometimes they can carry up to 500,000 volts of electricity. And in our neighborhoods in Santa Barbara, a lot of them are around 16,000 volts. So it's really hot lines. Some phone numbers to remember if you see a downed power line is you want to call 911 right away. First number you always call. After you call 911, you can call into our Edison hotline, which the number is listed on the slide here. It's 1-800-611-1911. You can call that number for the downed lines, but you can also call that number for other situations as well, other safety concerns such as debris in the lines, vegetation in the lines, balloons in the lines, anything that really shouldn't be there. You can call that number as well if you have some planned trimming you're going to be doing around the lines. We can sometimes send crews out. We can assist with that. Or if things align really well, we might be able to do it for you, keep the contractors you hire safe, and make sure that we're compliant with our laws as well. On the ground during these safety issues with the down lines, first you want to secure the area, secure yourself in that area. Those distribution lines in the neighborhoods, those 16,000 volt ones, you want to stay at least 100 feet away. For transmission lines, which is the ones on the towers, you want to be at least 300 feet away. Those are just so hot. And if you're not sure, just go for the bigger amount. You're never not too far. You want to stay clear of anything that might be contacting that area or that down line. So fences, vegetation, other lines that may be down and contacting those. Just don't go anywhere near those as well. Keep that distance from that. You gotta be really cautious with water. If say, fire starts, worst case scenario, don't use a full stream water because that can conduct the electricity back to yourself. You want to use a mist or a spray just to diffuse that water a little bit to limit that that electricity coming over to you. If you're on or near or inside a vehicle, you have to do a couple of extra precautions there as well. If you are near a vehicle or you're going to get in a vehicle, just don't get inside any new vehicles that are inside that area. Don't touch any cars that may have been contacted as well by that electrical current. Those are really good conductors, and you may be electrocuted by contacting that car or getting inside. If there's someone inside the vehicle and they can move that vehicle out of that zone, that's best case scenario. Have them drive away until they get the all clear. If they can't and they're stuck in the car, just stay in that car until someone gives the all clear for you to get out. If for some reason it's an imminent danger situation, such as the car is on fire, you will need to exit the vehicle, but you have to do some steps to ensure that you aren't electrocuted during the process. So you can't touch the ground and the car at the same time. You have to physically jump out of the car with both feet and land on the ground, both feet together without touching the vehicle, and then shuffle away until you're out of that zone. If you're able to stay in the car, if there's people injured, disabled, or unable to exit safely, just have them wait there until someone can come and relieve them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to the next. Oh, you know what, Leigh? Yeah, let me go over the agenda. So I'll start us off just now with the welcome and the safety. We'll go to Jude for the PSPS and the grid hardening updates. I'll touch a little bit on vegetation management. Jennifer will go over the customer programs, and then we will have a Q&A session as well as closing remarks. All right, Jude, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having us. I believe I hope I'm right about this, that we actually might have met one time before. I work in business resiliency, as I said just a minute ago, and I want to explain a little about who's in business resiliency, because my colleagues, right, in adjoining cubicles include 3 fire managers who are cross-trained as both electrical linemen and firefighters. We have seismic specialists. We have 9 meteorologists plus 3 dedicated fire scientists who are also meteorologist specialists. We have a civil engineer. We have a lot of training and exercise folks, mainly from the military or from county offices of emergency services. So we're a very mission-driven organization, and our organization is all about emergency response and resiliency. And resiliency is important. And it's one of the reasons that I love coming out and talking to the community, because I'm going to talk about PSPS, which is, of course, intentionally turning off power lines. And the really important thing is that we need to make sure that our communities are resilient and can last through power outages, whether or not they're ones that we turn on when we turn off the power, or whether it's a major storm like we had in January 2025, or, you know, the thing we all go like this about, which is the big one hits, and we're going to know that parts of the electric grid will probably be down for a while. So important to have battery backups, important to have generators, important to have plans, and to know and to be ready for that. And Jennifer's going to speak about that, but I always like to sort of talk about that and the why we are here piece of this. The other thing I want to say, one thing going back to what Janice said, you can keep the slide up, which is in Crestline in San Bernardino County in February. We did have an incident where a power pole in a windstorm weakened by water fell on a car. And happy to report that the power was shut off. Our linemen got there, and there were no injuries. So we also keep wanting to get that message out, because that is one of those things that keeps us up at night, and we can't prevent the poles getting hit by cars and the poles coming down and people inside those cars. So you are a great audience to share that message. So thank you. As I've been doing a lot of outreach to community groups, I've been discovering that there's a lot of confusion about our kinds of outages. And the reason for that is that they sometimes happen in the same time, and they're responding to the same thing, which is windstorms, for instance. So in a huge windstorm, we will potentially have lines that come down. And if those lines come down, it's an emergency outage. In January of 2025, as you know, we had a lot of lines coming down. And before that, you know, previous years when we've had huge windstorms, and those are power outages, and we need to drive the truck around, and we actually have to do the repair. At the same time, we're doing PSPS, and PSPS is when we are concerned that those lines coming down could cause a significant fire. Now, not any fire, but a significant fire. So we will have customers in scope for PSPS, and then the winds will come up, and then their power will come out, will shut down, and they'll be wondering why they didn't get all of their notifications. And the answer is because this was not us turning your power off. This was the emergency outage, which we call a repair outage. So you'll see, PSPS, we notify you if we can 1 to 3 days in advance. The notifications mention high winds and fire conditions. they're shared with jurisdictions, they're shared with the counties, so they're often other forms of communication. The notifications are mandatory. You can't turn them off. If you turn them off, we'll turn them back on, which is why we counsel people to choose text messages, because if you don't want to be woken at night for us to tell you that your power's back on, which I admit is extremely annoying, if you have a text message, you can turn your sound off and you can sleep through it, and then you'll know in the morning that your power's on pretty easily. However, for businesses, we recommend emails, because you could filter if you have, more than 10 or 20 locations, you might want to filter those. And so that would mean that you probably prefer email to the kind of popcorn of notifications of a text. And for those who are not computer savvy, don't have cell phones, there's a phone option, but of course that would mean middle of the night calls. Repair outages, they're not mandatory. So often people who are find that they're not being notified when their power's out, it's because they have opted out of notifications. So it's important to check to make sure that you have signed up for all those notifications. Typically we will notify customers within 10 minutes after the power goes off, unless it's a huge event, like, when there's a big earthquake, we're not going to be able to get to everybody in 10 minutes. We try for same day restoration. It depends on the complexity. It's one of the things that we mark ourselves on, is our ability to restore power quickly. So that's the highest priority. Maintenance outages, we'll send a notification up to 10 days before we shut off. The notification will mention the need for repairs. Again, if you're not signed up for those notifications, you won't get them. And typically they take less than 5 hours. And although they're set and there's reasons, people will wonder why we have to do them when it's cold or when it's hot. And I think that's mainly because in California, it's so frequently cold or hot that we just need those planning days. But there are the county offices of emergency management have been able to work with us in some cases to adjust some of these. I'm going to stop. Are there any questions about this? All right, we'll go to the next slide. I'm going to tell you a little bit about PSPS. I'm not going to be able to stay on through 10, so absolutely, if you have questions, please do bring them up as I'm going through, because I do want to address them. You might have seen some of these weather stations in your neighborhoods. I love finding them in the wild. Pull over and look up. I'm like, wow, it's one of our weather stations. So for PSPS, and I'm going to go a little bit through PSPS, how we forecast, but we use these weather stations, and they're located. We have hundreds of them, and they are located on our circuits. There's one per circuit, and they have a temperature sensor, a wind monitor, a solar panel to keep them powered, and we have a data logger which records data, and a satellite communicator. And as you drive along, you'll see them. And we've been working to put them in places that are sensitive to localized wind. And meaning that if you're in a canyon, the winds will be different than if you're outside the canyon. But we want to make sure that if we're turning off power, we can turn off power in the canyon and potentially not in the place where the wind is much lower. And the way we do that is by measuring the wind at those different areas. And if they're on different circuit segments, we can make some adjustments. Next slide. So we've been working on our decision making for PSPS, and it's complex, but it is data driven. And honestly, you are the very first people I've shared this slide with, because we have recently updated how we make these decisions, and I'm kind of working out, and you can tell me whether this is working or not, trying to explain this in the most simple fashion. But we have a baseline criteria for PSPS decision making for each circuit. And it's based on whether we have bare wire or whether we've put covered conductor on it. I'm going to talk a little about covered conductor in a couple minutes. And those set the thresholds. So mainly bare wire, it's 31 miles per hour, sustained winds, 46 miles per hour gust. With covered conductor, it means that things won't hit into our wires and cause a spark because the wires have covering on them. So we can do higher temperature, higher wind speeds, 40 miles per hour versus 58 miles per hour. Covered conductor doesn't eliminate PSPS because the wires can still come down, but we're not as concerned, as I said, with things hitting those wires. And the other kinds of data are a little more obscure, but there are some different exceptions there. The wind threshold is the threshold at which we forecast a PSPS event. This is when we start sending out the 3-day in advance notifications. And we look at what we think the peak is going to be for the wind and the vegetation dryness, and determine whether we think it's going to become a PSPS emergency. We look at circuit health factors. What's the condition of the circuit? We do, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, we do an inspection in advance to see if there's any vulnerabilities, and we try and fix them before the PSPS event. And we look at the fire risk severity and consequences, meaning if there is a fire in this area, how bad will it be and what would the consequences be? And some areas, and I think there's some in Santa Barbara County that have difficult egress, for instance, are far more consequential than an area that is, has a lot of in egress and roads and is maybe surrounded by areas that won't burn. So we look at that. And then the trigger is when we de-energize, and that is when we approach the wind thresholds, and it might be brought down by urban conflagration potential, which is kind of a new term, but since Santa Rosa, Pacific Palisades, and Altadena, fire managers have really been looking at the fires that in urban places. It didn't used to be as big a issue, but as we move into this era of wildfires, we're seeing that it is a potential that we need to really keep top of mind. Fire suppression levels, meaning will we be able to get the fire the firefighters out there to suppress. And then whether there are National Weather Service declarations of particularly dangerous situation. And that's what happened last January. And then we might be particularly faster to de-energize if we think that the winds are going to hit those thresholds. We won't de-energize at a lower wind speed if we don't think we're going to get to that higher wind speed. But if we have a lot of decisions to make and we need to make them quickly, we will start sooner. And that, I could go to the next slide. Do you have any questions about this? All right, then.
Sorry.
Yeah, Tim. Did you have a question? I think you're on mute if you had a question.
Again. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Great. Do you have criteria for temporary re-energization during a wind event? Because I've lived through several multi-day wind events, and what happens after, the first 24, 48 hours is it goes from an inconvenience to living in a third world country, because after 24, 48 hours, the cell phone battery's dead, the car battery's dead, the fridge and freezer are defrosting, and it's all starting to go bad. And a few hours of temporary reconnection would get us back to just inconvenience. Whereas what tends to happen is once a wind event has started, even though it's sort of died down in the middle, it seems like Edison wait until the very end of the whole episode, and the wind event is clearly over and normal calm weather has returned. So I'm wondering whether there's the potential for re-energization in the middle of an event.
So there is, and I will tell you that our ops team, who are sitting there looking at these wind speeds, really do prioritize trying to turn power on in the middle of an event. What it requires, it requires like an 8-hour runway, right? We need enough time to be able to inspect and turn power on. And we will, if we have that runway, even if it turns out that the power's only on briefly, we will try and make those decisions to turn the power back on. And we are, in fact, sort of in a regulatory space trying to protect the ability to be able to do that. So, yes, we agree with you. And I will say that when we turn off power, we tend to be turning off our own team's power a lot of the time. So we get it. And we absolutely are trying to protect that ability to do temporary restoration, as we call it. I mean, there's a name for it. It's a thing we do. But as I said, we can't do it when the winds are going to die down for 2 or 3 hours, because we just can't get out there to inspect the lines, to turn the power on and then turn it back off again. We just don't have, we need many more people in trucks than we have in order to do it that quickly. So if you have an 8-hour runway, and frequently that's like overnight, we will attempt to turn power back on and then back off. Rob.
Yeah, I was just wanted to point out real quick to everyone on the call. It looks like on your website, you guys still have rebates for like small portable power stations and portable generators. Look pretty, actually, like substantial rebates. So that's always an option, is to come up with a backup plan that works not just for PSPS, but for emergency outages or, any kind of emergency or storm related damage.
So I love that you said that. And Jennifer's going to be speaking about that later, right after me, or later on in this presentation. So thank you. Yes, absolutely. So here's the notification timeline. And as I said in my earlier slide, this is how you know when it's a PSPS versus a different kind of event. We start planning 4 to 7 days out. 3 days out is when we first notify customers, if we know 3 days out, right? Sometimes weather changes more quickly and we aren't seeing something, and winds change location, they change change intensity. But 3 days out, we'll send everybody a notification. We used to only send out public safety notifications at 3 days, and we started notifying customers at 2 days. But we realized that didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we let everybody know, and we start to populate SCE.com, our outage page. So you should see what we're looking at in terms of PSPS. You should see when we're looking at PSPS if you can go on SCE.com, starting 3 days out. 2 days ahead, we notify an update. 1 day ahead, an update. And if there's any change, that change would be identified in that update. Then we send an expected shutdown notification 1 to 4 hours before the shutdown. The trick is not the 4 hours. The trick is the 1 hour. It's trying to make sure that we can see an hour and no less than an hour in advance. And after we've sent that, we don't resend it. Customers should assume that if we had expected a shutdown, they're still sort of in that high alert place. We do send a notification when we have authorized shutting down the power. Then the power is usually shut down within 10 minutes of that. And then we'll send a notification before we re-energize. And this is important, not necessarily for residential customers, but for those customers who potentially have inside wires. It means it's time to go look to make sure you don't have any wire damage. Also, you might want to turn things off to make sure that so when everything it comes back on, everything doesn't come on at the same time. And then we'll notify when power is restored. And this is something else I've been learning on the road is sometimes people get notification that the power's been restored, but their power hasn't been restored. Well, that means that that's definitely a problem. And we want to know, send us an outage report. That means that potentially there's a different outage and it wasn't the PSPS outage. But those notifications tend to be fairly accurate. So if your power's out and you've been notified it's on, we need to kind of figure that out. So I think I have a couple more slides there. If you can go to the next slide. One to kind of tell you what's going on the ground. I don't spend a lot of time here, but we have field crews out there. They observe before the event to, as I said, make sure that the circuits are stable. And then restoration typically takes 8 hours, up to 8 hours. We start at one place, and the place we start, it'll be a lot less than 8 hours. And then by the end of the circuit, it'll be closer to that 8-hour time frame potentially. I think our average is a lot less than 8 hours. However, remote circuits, those that are in the mountains, require helicopter patrol, or they might require daylight because they require a hike in. And then we can't restore overnight. So it might be that if we get the all clear at 6 p.m. in the winter, we're not going to be able to restore until that starts at 8 a.m. We are starting to ramp up our use of drones. And so we're hoping this year that we'll be able to do some of those remote inspections using drones. We have beyond line of sight licenses, which means we could have the drone kind of go up a mountain pass where we can't go. So we're hoping that that's going to reduce some of those overnights and longer restoration times. And I think that is it on PSPS. And I want to talk a little bit about our grid hardening and wildfire mitigation. What we spend money on is approved, reviewed and approved by the CPUC in our wildfire mitigation plan. It's a 3-year plan. So we submitted this in 2025 and it was approved recently. And the objective, as it says here, is to reduce the risk of wildfires and also to make sure that we're spending our money prudently in our approach to reducing wildfire risk. And I mention this because this program's available. All of the plan and all the amendments are available on our website. I don't know whether you don't know whether we have a link to it here, but it's very easily Googleable on our sc.com page. And here's our progress update. And I'm just going to quickly run through this. And this is going to be my last slide. So I talked about covered conductor. And we are at 7,000 plus miles of covered conductor, which really does improve our PSPS on fully covered segments or circuits. Undergrounding is something that we've been doing in some of the burn areas, and we have completed 80 circuit miles of undergrounding. Aerial fire. Yes, I believe this is on the website. Actually, I'm not sure about this chart, but I will find out if this chart is available on the website. Our aerial fire suppression resources is our funding of QRF, which is a fire retardant dropping helicopters that can fly at night, and they've been very effective in our areas. Talked about the weather stations. As you see, we have, I think this number is actually closer to 2,000 that have been completed. We have wildfire cameras, and the wildfire cameras are available on a public website. I think, let me just double check. See if we have, Those are at the last slide here will give you the locations, and I believe we're sharing that with you. And so you can go to the wildfire cameras. They show you their situational awareness. They show you where a fire might start. They can't prevent fires because obviously once you've seen the fire is there. But it does. It's very useful and helpful, and it also shows us where the vegetation is particularly dry or what the condition of it is. Field sampling sites for at PSPS, we look at vegetation moisture, and those sites are available. You can also kind of follow along and see what that looks like. And Jennifer's going to talk about critical care batteries and community resource centers when we get to her part of the discussion. So that's it for me. I know I speak quickly. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to have to leave you guys in the next 5 minutes or so, but I'm happy to take any questions offline if you provide them in the Q&A, and Jennifer and Janice can let me know. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much, Jude. So I'll just reintroduce myself real quick before jumping into my slide. But again, my name's Janice Marinucci. I'm the senior specialist with the vegetation management program in the Santa Barbara district. So anything vegetation related, trees, weeds, all of it, that is going to be within my jurisdiction. So let's go ahead, scooch on to the next slide, and I'll give a really super brief overview of a couple of things that we do for vegetation management. So starting off here is a big one that does a lot of that wildfire mitigation, which is the hazardous tree removal. This is removing any trees that are outside of our normal scope of trimming that we deem as being a danger to the power line. So any trees that may be dead or decadent, sort of diseased, will come in and we'll remove that tree just to ensure that the power lines are safe. We inspect up to 1.6 million trees per year that might pose a hazard to the power lines across our entire service area of about 50,000 square miles. More than 749,000 are located in high fire risk areas. Santa Barbara district has a lot of high fire risk area. The majority of it is high fire risk. Vegetation removal is also occurring at poles and around the power lines, just to keep, again, additional wildfire mitigation at top of mind here, as well as keeping in line with our regulations. And, removing anything that might interfere with the lines or the poles, accessing poles, whole slew of things. We are doing more remote sensing and being engaged with satellite technology to enhance our inspections as well as vegetation management. And in the next few years, we're going to see a lot more of that as we bring more of the technology into the vegetation management landscape. Last year in 2025, we inspected and cleared brush at 157,691 structures. And the previous slide where they gave all the numbers, we actually are doing more than the minimum required amount of clearing around poles, just to really try and get everything as safe as possible. So especially in that high fire risk area. Does anyone have any questions about vegetation management before we start scooching on here? I know that was like a really high level overview. And I can talk more offline if you guys have more questions, but does anyone have any questions they want to ask right now? Okay, sounds great.
I'm sorry,
wait,
I have a
Kristen,
question.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's any opportunities for matching funding, say, we have a lot of, because you noted most of Santa Barbara is in high fire, and we have neighborhood associations who are funding their own goats or their own extra chipping. Is there any opportunity for matching funds or contributions to that?
Oh, that is a great question. I'm sure there are opportunities to look at. I personally wouldn't know because I manage the contractors, and that's more of what I deal with as our day to day in that sense. But I can contact my counterparts and see if there's opportunities for that. But I know Edison has been involved with stuff like that in the past. Would you be willing to send me some information and then
Yes.
I can go ahead and get that over? Oh, thank you so much.
Thank
We can
you.
look into that for sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gustavo.
Yes, good morning. In the Fire Safe Council, I work with the Spanish-speaking communities throughout the entire county. And I am, your colleague, what she presented, I think, very important information, to share with the entire community. So is anyone in your team doing any outreach to Spanish-speaking communities?
I know as far as Spanish outreach, we Spanish speaking outreach, we do provide all our materials and dialogue in English and in Spanish. So if there's an English version, there's more than likely a Spanish version of it. I don't know the specifics behind how they're disseminating that information out, like those notifications that get sent out. I'm not sure if they are sending them out both ways, because customers that are signing up for those notifications, I'm sure some of them need that information provided in Spanish. But Jude would probably know more on that. I think she may have jumped off, but let me ping her on that. And then if you want to provide your information in the chat, I can connect you and you guys can discuss that more. Maybe that's a step that they need to be doing more.
That
Yeah,
would be perfect.
Gustavo.
Thank you.
Oh, Jennifer,
Yeah,
yes,
this is
please.
Jennifer Ocampo. Yeah, I work in customer service, and you're right, Janice. All of the notifications, people can choose their preferred method of communication. It's either text, message, phone call, or email. But you can as well choose whether you speak Spanish or other. We also have American Sign Language. So yeah, we do outreach in multiple languages. I have personally done customer service oriented presentations in Spanish. So if there's a need, we would definitely look for a way to bring that information out.
Perfect. Yeah, if you can connect me with your colleague, that will be very appreciated. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, well, I think that was all we had for questions, and I think Jennifer, you're up next.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for having me. So as I mentioned, I work in customer service, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we support our communities when we are experiencing a PSPS or when we have a PSPS forecasted. So we have currently 115 community resource centers that are contracted to operate during a PSPS. So what we do is we look at the service territory and the potentially impacted areas, and then we operate those that are in communities that could potentially get de-energized. The community resource centers are locations where people can come in and charge their devices, whether they're mobile devices or medical equipment. They can also seek information from our staff to understand what's happening in their neighborhood, like the status of the PSPS, including their own household. They can sign up for notifications, change language preferences if needed. So we have those operating during PSPS. We also have what is called the community crew vehicles. So in those cases where we don't have a contracted site and we can operate indoors, we would deploy our vehicles. We definitely prefer to have it indoors just because it's temperature controlled, is much more comfortable for our customers and our employees. But when we do need to, we will deploy these vehicles. They're basically sprinter vans. We will set up in either a parking lot or a park. We'll put up a canopy and just on a table where we would have like our staff communicating with our customers. We also have charging capabilities, although the community crew vehicles is a little bit more restricted in what we can charge. We have 8 resiliency zones. Those are specifically for rural communities. So these are essential services that we offer to provide backup generator just to make sure that we maintain those essential services going. So here we talk a little bit more about what a CRC and a CCV is. So you can see on this pictures, we have our sprinter vans and our table. So we have staff there and people can come in and ask questions. We have brochures in multiple languages and snacks. Our vehicles also have the capability of charging devices. So yeah. In terms of backup battery programs, I know you guys mentioned it earlier. We do have a variety of programs available. We have what's called Critical Care Battery Backup Program. Those are small batteries, portable batteries for people who use medical equipment and are enrolled in what we call our medical baseline program, which is basically people that use medical equipment at home. They have to certify by a doctor that they do use that equipment, and we would provide them a battery for free as well as a discount for the use of their device. We also have an event battery loan. So that's for customers that don't necessarily have a battery at the moment. And that's for essential use, such as medical devices or assistive technologies. So, in that event that you don't already own a battery, you can call 211, which is one of our partners, and ask for a battery for loan. Our contractor would um, schedule those deliveries. So it could take up to like 24 hours to do those deliveries. But that's why we want to make sure that when we do provide those notifications, if you need that service, you contact them right away. And then we have rebates. We have rebates for small power stations. Those rebates are at $150. And we also have rebates for portable generators. So portable generators are more like that fuel power generator that you put outside of your house, and then you connect your devices via a cable. We partner a lot with a community-based organizations specifically to help our customers that are more vulnerable. So of course, we refer to them as access of or functional needs. So these are people that may have a disability, a chronic condition, maybe some dependency on medical devices. So for those customers, we have partnered with 211 services. So 211 services are informational referrals, they're confidential, they're available 24/7. So if people are experiencing a PSPS, they can call 211, and based on what's available in their community, they can refer them to either transportation, hotel accommodations, or food support. And this is all at no cost to the customer because things change from different territories. Not every community is the same. We do recommend that customers do what's called a care coordination appointment with them so that before the PSPS occurs or before an emergency occurs, they do an emergency planning session with a care coordinator, so a specialist in that, and then they'll walk you through your emergency planning journey that's going to be looking very different from location to location. So that way, if let's say you live in a rural area and your transportation needs might be met by, contacting your neighbor or using paratransit transportation, you already have those connection points and you already know that that's your plan to be ready to be executed at the moment. We also have contracts with local food banks. So for customers that might need food assistance because of the energizations, they can visit a local food bank and then they can get a food box to help them with that recovery phase after the PSPS has occurred. And the other thing that we do is we partner with local community-based organizations. I think we've partnered with many fire safe councils in the past where they help us disseminate the message to our customers. Community-based organizations are really the trusted partners in the communities, and we really rely on them to help us educate our customers on what's available. And that's what I had so far. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I also have helpful information and resources here at the end of the presentation. I sent the presentation over by email in a PDF format, so please feel free to share that with all of the participants just so that they have access to the links. It's very useful information.
Great.
And with that, I'll just open it to questions.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Ladies? Yes, Liz?
Hi, thank you all so much. And I'm not sure who this question is best suited to, but in terms of like PSPS mitigation, I'm curious if any part of the work is looking at the circuit designs, because my understanding is there's certain circuits that might include both the front and back side of a peak, right? And those have different climates and different threats. But, you know, if one side's shut off, that means the other is. So yeah, is circuit design being looked at? Kind of the areas that they serve.
Depends on how you logged in.
Yeah, I think that question would have been better suited for Jude, and I'm sorry that she had to leave. I know we do look at segmentation, so where possible, we segment those long lines just so that the impact is reduced. But I can bring that back to Jude to just make sure that I address all of the components of your question.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for coming. It's a wealth of information, and we appreciate that, spending your time and you know, putting this presentation on our website probably will, so for everybody to utilize at some point. So, all right. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks guys so much. I did put my email in the chat, just if anyone ever has any questions, even if I can't answer it, I can get you to the right person and get you more information. So if you ever want to skip that 1-800 line, just email me and I'll get you going.
Great. Thank you, Janice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys.